Honorable Presidents of Senate, Honorable Speakers, good morning to yourselves. We apologize for starting without you, and you hope that you'll forgive us. I must say that I did get permission from the President of APNODE to begin, so I hope that on the basis of that you will forgive me. I was mentioning just before you came in how grateful we are for the exceptional hosting and hospitality of our Moroccan hosts, and I thought I should just mention that to yourselves as well. We have just about started, and I was mentioning that our topic today is, for this high-level panel, is evaluation as a governance tool. What role must parliaments play to realize this goal? And it is somewhat of a continuation of the very, very vibrant and inspiring conversation that started yesterday, as we did start talking about the role of parliaments in the evidence ecosystem, even though the focus of yesterday's topic was on the SDGs. But today's session will focus specifically on the subject of institutionalization. And with us, we are graced by the presence of the following honorable panelists. We have with us Honorable Abdelillah Hefti, Councillor and Quaestor of the House of Councilors, Kingdom of Morocco. Honorable Joseph S. Musanje, MP and Interim Chairperson of APNODE Zambia. Honorable Omega Sibanda, Member of Parliament of the Parliament of Zimbabwe. And Honorable Gisela Tete Agbotui, Member of Parliament of the Parliament of Ghana. Welcome, and thank you so much for gracing us with your presence for today's panel. So the flow of the session for today is as follows. I will pose the first question. We have 5 questions in total. I'll pose the first question to each of yourselves as panelists, and you'll each have an opportunity to share your thoughts on at least the first question. But what we can do after that is, for the following 4 questions, I will pose them, and then we can have a free rein. Any one of the 4 of yourselves can choose to answer the question, and we might be able to have a conversation about each question. We have roughly 20 minutes for a conversation on each question, and after that, I will then open up the floor for the audience to engage with the panelists on the topics that do emerge from this. So if you'll allow me to jump straight into the first question. Honorable panelists, drawing on your personal experiences, how can African parliaments better leverage evaluation as a governance tool? What are the challenges that parliaments face in this effort, and what can be done to mitigate these challenges? Honorable Hefti, if you may start, please, with your thoughts. Thank you.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Tout d'abord, je tiens à vous souhaiter, en tant que membre du Sénat marocain, du Parlement marocain, vous souhaiter la bienvenue dans votre pays, Maroc. Et l'enjeu, c'est dire pourquoi aujourd'hui on parle d'évaluation. Pourquoi aujourd'hui? Parce qu'au Maroc, d'abord, il y a la Constitution de 2011 qui a consacré le principe de l'évaluation des politiques publiques dans le marbre, dans le corps de la Constitution. C'est-à-dire l'article 70 de la Constitution marocaine stipule que le Parlement vote les lois, le Parlement contrôle l'action du gouvernement et, enfin, le Parlement évalue plutôt les politiques publiques. Et il n'y a pas, justement, pour moi, une distinction entre ces 3 fonctions. On évalue d'abord les politiques publiques, on évalue les politiques publiques ex ante ou ex post, et puis après, c'est 3 temporalités différentes. Et puis après, on procède au contrôle de l'action du gouvernement, c'est-à-dire on organise le débat démocratique autour de ces questions, et une 3e temporalité qui est celle justement de la décision politique, s'il y a des décisions éventuellement à prendre. Et il faut que nos parlementaires séparent justement ces temporalités, qu'on soit de la majorité gouvernementale ou qu'on soit membre de l'opposition, il faudrait qu'il y ait un moment de la discussion, du débat démocratique, et un moment de la décision politique. C'est très important au niveau justement de notre démocratie. Pourquoi on parle aussi l'enjeu de l'évaluation aujourd'hui? Parce que, il faut le dire, la démocratie représentative est en crise. La démocratie représentative est remise en cause. La démocratie représentative, à tout le moins en tout cas, elle est interrogée. Et nous législateurs, je pense, me semble-t-il, avons l'obligation justement de répondre à ces préoccupations. C'est très important. Donc le constituant a entendu confier justement cette fonction d'évaluation au Parlement, mais c'est une compétence que n'exerce pas le Parlement tout seul. C'est une compétence partagée avec le gouvernement, partagée avec ses agences et ses excroissances administratives, partagée avec la société civile, partagée avec la Cour des comptes, par exemple, c'est-à-dire des entités, des instances indépendantes d'évaluation, et partagée aussi dans le cadre de la démocratie participative à travers les conseils économiques, sociaux et environnementaux de notre pays et de notre continent. Donc, et là, il y a une certaine convergence, je pense. Il y a une certaine convergence entre la démocratie participative, le citoyen est là à travers le CESE par exemple, et la démocratie représentative dont la souveraineté appartient au peuple et qui est exercée par ses représentants, c'est-à-dire nous les parlementaires, nous les législateurs. Mais qu'est-ce donc l'évaluation? Parce que le législateur a parlé justement, il a consacré l'évaluation, mais il n'y a aucune définition de la législation au sein de la Constitution, ni au niveau des lois. L'évaluation permet, bien sûr, je peux me hasarder à une définition, permet trois choses. D'abord, d'établir si les résultats d'une politique publique sont conformes aux objectifs attendus, d'un côté, de l'autre aussi d'estimer l'impact. Est-ce que les impacts sur la population sont conformes à ses besoins, et si aussi, troisièmement, si les coûts sont raisonnables par rapport aux résultats. Il y a aussi une deuxième étape qui est importante dans ce processus, au niveau de l'évaluation, c'est la loi organique des finances. La loi organique des finances qui met en place certains outils et certaines procédures de l'évaluation ex ante, c'est-à-dire en amont de la décision. Là, le gouvernement justifie sa politique au niveau de la loi de finances, qui est le principal acte économique, politique et économique de l'année. Et là, il faut dire que les parlementaires ont un rôle à jouer. Sauf que il faut l'information, il faut le flux d'informations au niveau de l'État, encore au niveau de la loi de finances, et au niveau, s'il y a des lois organiques des finances qui stipulent qu'il y ait en amont une pertinence, une mesure de la pertinence au niveau des budgets, etc., le Parlement peut valablement, justement, procéder à des évaluations. Mais en général, l'initiative de la loi appartient, bien sûr, principalement au gouvernement. Même quand le Parlement prend des initiatives à travers des propositions de loi, parfois, vous allez rigoler, mais parfois le gouvernement n'est pas étranger à cela. Et il y a une inflation législative. Une inflation législative. On a à peu près au Maroc, dans une mandature, on a à peu près 400 à 500 lois pendant 5 à 6 ans, selon qu'on soit au niveau de la Chambre des députés ou au niveau de la Chambre haute, c'est-à-dire la Chambre des conseillers, le Sénat marocain. Donc cette inflation législative, elle impacte la qualité de la loi, elle impacte et l'ampute le Parlement justement à évaluer parce qu'on n'a pas le temps. Problème justement, l'une des limites, l'un des défis, c'est que pour effectuer une mission d'évaluation, il faut disposer de temps. Il faut qu'on ait le temps nécessaire pour évaluer. C'est une temporalité où la lenteur est importante. Or, nous, on évalue, on ne peut pas évaluer 400 à 500 minutes. On ne procède même pas, d'ailleurs, c'est une recommandation que je fais au Parlement africain. Il faudrait, moi-même, au niveau du Maroc, en tant que parlementaire, j'exhorte mon pays, j'exhorte notre Parlement à effectuer des bilans des lois qu'on vote. Quel est le sort? Quel est le sort des lois qu'on vote? Je peux vous dire, moi je suis président, je proviens de la catégorie, au Maroc, le Sénat est pluriel. Je proviens de la catégorie des employeurs. Au Maroc, rares sont les pays qui, justement, consacrent la représentation sociale et économique. Nous, on a une représentation des syndicats, on a une représentation économique, une représentation des chambres professionnelles et une représentation des territoires. J'en parlerai peut-être tout à l'heure. Parce que l'évaluation des territoires au niveau des collectivités locales, encore l'État, quand il s'agit de compétences étatiques, bon, il sait évaluer parce qu'il a les outils pour le faire. Mais les collectivités territoriales, à la limite, les plus puissantes savent le faire. Mais au niveau des compétences partagées, je peux vous dire, c'est un angle mort de l'évaluation. Et ça mérite, Madame la Présidente, peut-être un séminaire à lui tout seul, hein, l'évaluation des politiques partagées au niveau des territoires. Donc je peux vous dire, je parlais des sorts et du bilan des lois votées. Certains ne vont pas aimer, mais je préside la Fédération du transport et de la logistique au niveau du patronat marocain, et j'ai une loi à laquelle j'ai participé à son élaboration en 2010. Elle a été votée par le Parlement en 2011 sur les matières dangereuses. Votée en 2011, promulguée, journal officiel, toutes les procédures. À aujourd'hui, 2022, les mesures d'application, c'est-à-dire les décrets et les arrêtés ministériels, ne sont pas encore sortis. Alors, on a perdu du temps, des deniers publics, etc. Et en plus, ça concerne la salubrité des citoyens. Là, c'est des problématiques, c'est des limites, justement. Donc, faire un bilan annuel des lois qu'on a votées et, justement, leur sort, des lois peut-être à N-1, allez, disons N-1, et peut-être lié au niveau des lois, quand on veut voter les lois, eh bien, mettre à la fin qu'on donne au gouvernement 6 mois, 1 année, pour justement la mise en application de cette loi à travers justement les mesures d'application. Mais je ne voudrais pas monopoliser la parole, mais j'interviendrai tout à l'heure. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Honorable Hifti. And I think you mentioned some of the most important elements of institutionalization, that when we talk about institutionalization, you know, how do you get it into laws? In fact, having it in the Constitution is seen many times as being the ultimate, evidence of institutionalization. But I'm sure there are some other thoughts on what can some of the challenges, still accompany even when it is in the Constitution. But thank you very much for your thoughts. Honorable Musanje, your thoughts, please.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. I think our question is on the challenges as parliaments facing the effort of institutionalizing M&E. I would say that from a starting point that whilst a bit of monitoring has been going on, we can say that evaluation is almost a whole new thing for our parliaments. And as a result, there is quite a number of challenges, starting with the inadequate leadership on monitoring and evaluation, in that we don't have many people that have got the competency and also who can stand up as champions for our parliament in the area of monitoring and evaluation. We've got a limited capacity in terms of staff and skill set in the parliament who will be able to take this to a higher level. We have inadequate budget allocation, no funding which is allocated to monitoring and evaluation. And for you and me, as professionals in this area, we know that it requires a whole budget for you to get your various tools and the equipment, the softwares, and all the travel and all that is required. And so when people don't add money to this area, then we have a big challenge. We have unclear linkages that effectively demonstrate and contribute to parliaments to the government-wide monitoring and evaluation system. The governments are using these e-systems, for example, HMIS for health. I think education also has education statistics, something. Yeah. Now, those systems are not linked to parliament, or parliament linking itself to those systems so that we could get their data, raw data, and maybe or processed reports so that we can immediately use them for our work as parliament. Instead, we can say that most of the M&E activities are left to individual MPs' initiative, apart from, of course, one desk officer. For the parliamentarians, it's left to the individual MP initiative. For example, you come on board as an MP, you need a full baseline of your constituents. You need a full baseline of your constituents. And you don't have a budget for it. You don't have the capacity in terms of all the skills. You don't have the human resource to do it and the like. So you find yourself doing piecemeal, piecemeal activities. You do maybe water sector by collecting just each village. You ask the village headman to submit the boreholes available and where they need water and stuff like that. You move to another sector, telecoms. You again check where they need a tower and the like. So you're doing piecemeal baseline when you should actually be doing a comprehensive baseline for the entire constituency. And that comprehensive baseline could help you then now set targets, proper targets for each ward, for each community or village and the like, which you could do then you work towards. So that when you are pushing for things in parliament, when you're debating from an informed mindset, and you're also debating or pushing for things that are clearly needed. But we don't have this. The constituency officers are not equipped for M&E. Yeah, we've got only a professional assistant who basically is responding to mail, to visitors and the like, and not to the crucial area of ensuring that the baseline is in, projects that are being implemented are being monitored, and then there's an evaluation. For example, even after one MP has served their term, after their 5-year term, there should be an evaluation as to what was the impact of their work, which is not existing because there is no provision for that, and there is no capacity for that. So the other part is, for example, when we are dealing with the committee stage, it's we're relying on the evidence being brought by stakeholders that come to appear before the committees. And there's very little research from MPs or even the committee clerk to go and, get processed reports that could help the situation. So some of the actions, of course, which we could do is, of course, with the partnership, for example, in Zambia with the CREA-A, we had a good comprehensive review of our M&E situation at Parliament, and that report has helped a lot because now we're able to start some activities in terms of rectifying them, including having partnership with the University of Zambia, where there is also a good department on M&E, and also partnership with the Ministry of Finance, who are also running another good poverty analysis too. So partnership would build our capacity and support some of the things we should be doing, working with cooperating partners to bridge the resource gap. Yeah, so getting as many cooperating partners as possible so that we can be able to get the resources that we need to set up these good systems that should run from constituents all the way to Parliament. Yeah. And of course, APNODE can also be a point that helps us to have this capacity in terms of tools and systems that can help us to get the best practices. For example, what can work, and maybe parliament-wide systems. And then also within ourselves, we've got our first Deputy Speaker, who is a founding member of the APNODE, and we want to work with her a lot as a strategic person within our parliamentary system, so that we can continue to leverage on her position to get various services and areas of action. So I think that's my reaction to the challenges question.
Thank you very much, Honorable Musanja. And I think you mentioned some of the most critical impediments to institutionalization, capacity and resources. And I think we underestimate, we have high aspirations of what we'd like to do in monitoring and evaluation, and particularly evaluation, but it's completely underfunded in most cases. So thank you for your comments. Honorable Sibanda, your thoughts?
Thank you very much. In Zimbabwe, all respect to the honorable speakers present and the president and the chairman of APNODE. In Zimbabwe, we're a little bit a step ahead in terms of monitoring and evaluation. We've got policy since 2015, which guides us how to do things. And eventually a ministry was formed. There's a minister minister in the president's office responsible for monitoring and evaluation on and implementing government projects. So established a ministry. So that's one hardly ahead in terms of challenges. But however, quite a number of challenges are seen. The person who is guiding us to make sure that evaluation on development with evidence is implemented is our Honorable Speaker of Parliament. He has been pushing on monitoring and evaluation, including our Zimbabwe APNODE chapter with our chairman. We've done a lot of workshops to make people aware of monitoring and evaluation. However, our biggest challenge is awareness from downwards, say from secondary schools upwards. In our universities in Zimbabwe, there is a degree on monitoring and evaluation. So quite a number of people from tertiary education and upwards, they are aware of monitoring. The challenges we face is on resources in terms of evaluating what we'll have done on constituencies all over the country. You look at constituency offices for the MPs, where you can actually sit with your researcher, making sure that you evaluate what government projects they are up to at your constituency, and other NGOs, what they'll be doing. Will they be doing it properly and effectively? The challenge is resources to the MPs and councillors, how to do the monitoring and evaluation on development projects. So what we see as a big challenge also is that sometimes different backgrounds of politicians as legislators. You get a legislator from an opposition and there is a minister from a ruling party. In terms of evaluating at that constituency level, it becomes a challenge. A challenge in that it turns out to be political sometimes. How best can we do that as parliamentarians of Zimbabwe and APNODE? It is to engage and make sure that people accept that in any government setup, one has to cease to come from a political party once you occupy the office of being a legislator. One has to accept that I am now a legislator and beyond party politics when I do government projects. That alone, we need to change people's mindsets to make sure that now I represent the people. For example, in Zimbabwe, in our constitution, the constitution is clear. On Article 117, it says that legislative authority of Zimbabwe is derived from the people and is vested in and exercised in accordance with the constitution. So in that regard, it means that you represent the people, you don't represent your party when you go to parliament. So we want to avoid these challenges as we go forward, that once you're in parliament, forget about your political affiliation. Let's push for the agenda of development and do monitoring the evaluation to the best we can. And also, it further states that the legislative authority confers on the legislator the power to make and amend laws of peace, order, and good governance of Zimbabwe. To go further to section 119 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, it summarizes the duties of Parliament as revolving around protecting the Constitution and promoting democratic governance in Zimbabwe. In those two sections, Mr. Chair, of the Constitution, what is paramount is that Parliament must perform its functions for the good of the people they represent, and nothing more. In this regard, we're talking about a ministry which has been formed in the country. We shouldn't have challenges with interrogating whoever has got government resources to achieve certain projects. So the ministry itself on its own, on its department, has got such a setup that it goes and monitor and evaluate. And also as MPs, what I think should be done is the challenge of impacting this knowledge of evidence-based evaluation in Parliament. MPs, for example, in Zimbabwe, some 2 weeks ago, we had a sanitization workshop in Parliament, which was organized through our local chapter of APNODE, where we had more than 100 MPs at the workshop, where we're making sure that they understand what monitoring the evaluation means, what evidence-based evaluation means. It was a very successful workshop where the speaker was there and he was the main speaker. A lot of people after the workshop understood what we mean by evaluation. They understood what we mean by APNODE. And also as a challenge is that our MPs are not fully capacitated. Once you are an MP, you are there, you take money from your pocket to move around the constituencies. In Zimbabwe, there is what is called CDF, Constituency Development Fund, but it's not enough. Remember, the duties of an MP is not to develop, but it is to make laws and do the oversight role. But sometimes the challenges we face with our communities are that of a lack of knowledge to our people, which we feel people must be told the duties of an MP. My job is oversight role, which will now go to the monitoring the evaluation and evidence-based evaluation on government projects. But most of our MPs end up doing the job of various government departments because people expect more than that. That's what we're having. That's a big challenge. So if I start saying that I will do my evidence-based evaluation, the next elections, you won't see me in Parliament. People will be saying, no, look, you are not doing your job. Yet I was doing my job to the best of my ability through what I'm supposed to do, through the Constitution. So what we are saying is, we face a lot of challenges as MPs. We need, for example, the challenge of capacity building, not only in Parliament, also in our constituencies, so that people understand. We've got traditional leaders there. They should understand how we work. They should know also about this evidence-based evaluation, not only the MP, the community leaders in the community, also those people, churches and other people who are very influential in the society. We should take it downwards, the monitor and evaluation, to our communities, to the village level, up the ladder we go. It shouldn't be based up top heavy. It shouldn't go up. It should at least go a little bit down to educate and make sure that people understand when we say this. And also, the other biggest challenge is that you find that I'm an MP, but I don't have office staff who are going to be my researchers. That's a big challenge. How do I implement these things? I cannot try from the length and breadth of the constituency by myself, and taking notes of what government projects are, how they are being implemented. And also the NGOs, we need to monitor what they do and give our own opinion in terms of reporting what they are doing. Obviously evidence-based on what they do. Some say we are coming to do a dam at your constituency. You discover that the dam is so small, very tiny dam. Try to talk about it, they will politicize that because the full knowledge of evidence-based evaluation and monitoring is not known by the community. And also, as an MP, the other challenge you face there when you start evaluating, monitoring and evaluation, there would be MPs who want to take over from you. They will take advantage of that. The moment you start saying, no, this dam or this road was not done properly because of such things, go and present it in Parliament, go and present it somewhere else, they will say that you are anti-development. That's what they do. But what we need to do, as government of Zimbabwe, for example, at least we have started the wheel rolling, we are pushing, especially with the support we get from our Honorable Speaker and His Excellency, our President, Mnangagwa. That's why he formed a ministry called, a ministry in his office, which does the monitoring and evaluation and implementing government projects. For now, Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Siband. And I think you mentioned some critical, important challenges that are very peculiar to parliaments and to members of parliament. Capacity building is definitely coming out very strongly again. But then also, I think a refrain that has come out since Monday, since our first day, is the importance of involving communities, the citizens. What is their voice in this institutionalization? We always think about institutionalization perhaps being, the job of government to have resources, to have capacity, to have systems. But to what extent are we actually involving communities and citizens in this institutionalizing and the advocacy as well, so that they understand what monitoring and evaluation is? Honorable Gisela, your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Right Honorable Speakers, colleague MPs and partners in evaluation. Thank you very much. Just a few, my colleagues have really expanded on the issue and the subject of evaluation. And it's interesting how we have so many similarities as members of parliament in the African context. I'd safely say, I think African parliaments need to be a bit more proactive. There's different degrees of evaluation being undertaken so far, but maybe there has to be a much more better formalization of the process. Now, informally, when you go back to your communities, as we are representatives of our people, when we go back to our communities and do our various community engagements, the people who we represent, when they ask us the questions, you can see they are doing their own form of informal evaluation, even on you and on your government. And I think it is time for us, cutting across, to, like I said, be a bit more formal, but maybe have the legislature to back the formality. Otherwise, according to the whims and caprices of, as a senior colleague used that expression, the whims and caprices of another government or another speaker or other leadership in parliament, they might tend to turn things around a bit. That said, on the formalization, I think the next thing we'll talk about is actual leadership. The Speaker of Zimbabwe has been with APNODE for years. From what I read, from yesterday I could tell. Incidentally, our Speaker, Right Honorable Bagbin, has also attended the APNODE conferences before. And we can see that translating into the efforts. This, last year, the Parliamentary Service Board decided to set up an Office of Policy Analysis. He thinks that it's just not enough to just bring the budget, the government brings the budget, and we're debating, we're discussing, passing the Appropriation Act and all, but there has to be a bit more in-depth analysis of what the executive are doing. And so evaluation is likely to be a key component of it, but it is yet to be set up. And that tells proactive leadership, making the effort to engage in the right checks and balances on the executive. Also, I would say that the culture of evaluation has to be a culture, an organizational culture of evaluation. And it's for Parliament to, you know, there are topics that tend to trend, and it takes time, and society would come up with, you know, society comes up with the certain needs, and it just comes at a particular time, a moment in time. And the culture of evaluation, complementing the formality of it, I'm sure is likely to bring better results. I'd also talk about the challenges. But before that, there comes a time, there's an African proverb, a Ghanaian proverb that says that when you're cutting a footpath, you don't know whether it is straight or crooked behind you. And that just speaks of evaluation in our own native wisdom. And so I think it also comes a time when, even as members of Parliament, my colleague talked about it, we ourselves need to evaluate ourselves and our efforts. First as individuals, and then next as the Parliament as a whole, in every session. So for example, we have 4 meetings. At the end of the 3rd meeting, how did we fare? Aside from the fact of how many bills we passed, and so on and so forth, how did we fare as a Parliament? Were we progressive enough? Were we proactive enough? Did our evaluation systems or ecosystem that we've tried to set up, did it produce the needed results and checks and balances on the executive? Those are questions I think we need to ask ourselves. I'll talk about some of the challenges. Again, the culture of evaluation and how refined it is. And then next, the commitment to evaluation, the actual commitment, both from Parliament, leadership in Parliament, members of Parliament, the whole system of Parliament, and to what degrees are this level of commitment, and how far are we ready and prepared to go? And then I also talk about the capacity to evaluate. I think we've talked about that quite a bit. As a member of Parliament, depending on my speciality as I enter Parliament, my professional expertise before, supposing I was a teacher, will I be able to evaluate what the Ministry of Finance comes up with? Not too sure I would have that capacity to do that. But like a colleague mentioned yesterday, there may be some standardized toolkits that could be given to us eventually to do that. But then we have our research staff that complement us. We in Ghana, we have our own research assistants, but the Parliament also has research staff who they take care of the generality of it, but we are more constituency specific with our research assistants. Now, we just realized that we just need to build capacity on evaluation, the art and the science of it. And by the time we are done, I'm sure we're making certain progress. I can tell that some countries' parliaments may be ahead of us, but it's okay. The race it takes incremental steps. And then lastly, I'll talk about the continuation to evaluation. The continuation. After the evaluation, all the reports have been done, what next? We tend to have this culture of the reports are brought, well read, and the next thing is it's put on a shelf somewhere, and the actions that should be taken to remedy or to rectify or to realign are not really done to the best of our own maybe satisfaction. And so, yes, we'll have all the beautiful reports, and at that point, we're stuck. It's something like a cycle, because when you get the input, the output of evaluation, you should be able to refine your policies and programs. Now in Ghana, in between 2017 and 2020, there was actually a ministry for monitoring and evaluation, and it was headed by a member of parliament, a very experienced member of parliament. Prior to that, there would be units of monitoring and evaluation in the various ministries, policy planning, monitoring and evaluation. Those four would be put together. And then in the office of the president, he also had such a setup with a combination of evidence and evaluation. But then again, it was more like to know what was happening where. But as to whether it was actually going to address and improve, that's another matter. Just about a week or two ago, there was an issue of, we are re-registering all our SIM cards. Re-registering all our SIM cards. And the policy to register them is a good one because of internet fraud and fraud generally, and they just want to realign and get our data right. Now the requirement is that you must have a card called the ECOWAS, Ghana card or ECOWAS card. And a lot of people do not have that card. And the Minister of Communication set a deadline that by 31st July, if you have not synced your Ghana card to your SIM card, then your phones are going to be blocked. But in reality, the statistics showed that barely 40% of Ghanaians even had the Ghana card, let alone. So the policy is good. Perhaps there should have been milestone checks, like a checkpoint. Because look at the whole value chain of the whole evaluation system, the policy generation. Perhaps there should have been, at this point, where are we? At this point, what have we done? If that was noticed and taken cognizance of, she would not have had to come and announce that it has been extended by another 3 months. But the reality is that the extension of 3 months is still not going to work. So it becomes, there's a disconnect between what the people that we represent need, what the government wants to do, and then we hang in the middle, and then we try and find a common ground. But in reality, perhaps there was a bit more scientific basis to and the analysis done. Policy is good, but you must address certain things at a certain time, with certain timelines, else you fall into that trap of policy, maybe dissonance, you can call it that. I think I'll end it for here. Thank you.
That's very, very interesting, Honorable Gisela. And I think one of the things you touched on was both the tangible and intangible aspects of institutionalization. So when you talked about culture and commitment, those are some of the intangible things of institutionalization. But your last comment actually brings us to the next question very nicely, because it talks about how do we now involve the non-state actors, because maybe when we do, if we think about the policy cycle that Professor Ian Goldman took us through on Monday, if we think about problem identification and going to the root cause, some of these things, it's about going back to citizens, going back to constituents and asking them what is the actual root cause of the problem. And that's part of evaluation as well. So it brings me back to Honorable Hifti. I'm going to start with you again, or in fact, anybody can answer. The second question is, a vibrant civil society can complement the oversight work of a national parliament. How can non-state actors such as VOPEs, so those who aren't familiar with VOPEs are voluntary organizations for professional evaluation. So they're basically the Professional Evaluators Association in a country. And I think there are almost 40 countries on the continent who have a national VOPE at the moment. So how can these actors, non-state actors such as VOPEs, civil society organizations, and even the media complement the efforts of Parliament to effectively exercise its oversight function on the executive and hold it to account for development results? Who would like to, apologies for that, on production side? I think they're going to sort it out first. Who would like to answer? Honorable Hifti, go ahead.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Comme je l'ai souligné tout à l'heure, le Parlement n'a pas le monopole de l'évaluation des politiques publiques. Il y a le gouvernement, il y a bien sûr ses administrations, comme je l'ai dit, et il y a la société civile. Bien sûr, il y a aussi les instances indépendantes, telles que la Cour des comptes, mais qui est un support plutôt à la fois pour le gouvernement et pour le Parlement, malheureusement pas pour la société civile pour le moment, mais le fait que les instances indépendantes publient leur rapport maintenant, aujourd'hui, ils ont l'obligation de publier le rapport, donc c'est un apport important pour la société civile afin d'avoir la data, avoir les données, la fiabilité fiable, pertinente, afin de procéder à l'évaluation. Maintenant, effectivement, il y a au niveau de la philosophie du législateur, aujourd'hui le parlementaire est l'émanation du peuple, le peuple exerce, comme je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, la souveraineté à travers justement ses représentants. D'un autre côté, le citoyen est déjà représenté à travers certaines instances de régulation, certaines instances d'évaluation, dont les conseils économiques, sociaux et environnementaux, justement, où il y a toutes les catégories de la société civile. Il y a les employeurs, la catégorie des employeurs, et la catégorie des salariés, la catégorie des experts, la catégorie des administrations et la catégorie de la société civile, c'est-à-dire toutes les associations, l'association femmes, l'association famille, enfants, handicapés, etc., etc., le développement durable, transition énergétique, etc. Donc, tout le monde est... Maintenant, aujourd'hui, entre ces instances-là, il y a une non-reconnaissance, il faut dire la vérité. Il y a une non-reconnaissance du rôle du citoyen en tant que tel, malgré que pour nous parlementaires, par exemple au Maroc, on a la possibilité que le citoyen intervienne en tant que législateur à travers les motions législatives et à travers les pétitions. Donc déjà le citoyen est législateur. Et la législation, c'est un moyen aussi d'évaluation, c'est très important. Puis je voudrais parler d'un autre point qu'il ne faudrait pas minorer aujourd'hui dans notre démocratie représentative, c'est le fait majoritaire. Le fait majoritaire est là, c'est-à-dire qu'aujourd'hui, la séparation des pouvoirs classique est battue en brèche aujourd'hui. Il n'y a plus de séparation des pouvoirs entre l'exécutif d'un côté et le pouvoir législatif de l'autre, tel qu'inscrit dans les manuels juridiques, etc., qu'on a plus ou moins regardé au niveau de nos études. Aujourd'hui, la séparation est autre. La ligne de démarcation, aujourd'hui, elle se situe entre l'exécutif d'un côté plus, je dis bien, plus l'exécutif d'un côté, plus sa majorité au niveau de la chambre basse et l'opposition minoritaire. Donc il y a ce fait majoritaire, il y a une majorité monolithique dont la culture, malheureusement, au niveau du parlementaire, empêche justement cette évaluation. Comment vous voulez évaluer une politique publique dont le gouvernement est l'émanation lui-même de la majorité parlementaire, et de ce fait-là, il y a une autocensure. Tout à l'heure, vous avez parlé, madame, de l'auto-évaluation. Moi, je parle de l'autocensure des parlementaires à déposer des amendements, à discuter les lois, à contrôler l'action du gouvernement, etc. Donc là, il y a un réel problème aujourd'hui dans le fonctionnement de nos démocraties, bien que, je dis bien que, les Sénats, je dis bien les Sénats, doivent fonctionner en tant que contre-pouvoir, justement, de ce fait majoritaire et des excès des chambres basses. Les chambres basses, grâce à cause de ce fait majoritaire, c'est-à-dire des majorités politiques. Donc, les Sénats, et c'est le cas, on essaie de le faire au Maroc, c'est le cas, on essaie d'être un contre-pouvoir par rapport à la chambre basse, c'est-à-dire qu'au niveau des Sénats, le gouvernement n'est pas responsable devant le Sénat. Donc le gouvernement n'a pas besoin de sa majorité au niveau du Sénat, et de ce fait-là, il y a une libération quelque part, bien qu'il y a justement cette cette culture aujourd'hui, malheureusement, cet enrôlement, je dis bien enrôlement du Sénat dans ce fait majoritaire aussi. Il y a des groupes politiques, des groupes parlementaires, au niveau de la première chambre, au niveau de la deuxième chambre, des réunions ensemble, etc. Et de ce fait-là, le fait majoritaire, malheureusement, empêche le fonctionnement normal de la démocratie. Ça, c'est un fait aussi. Il y a cette capacitation, bien sûr, parce que pour pouvoir évaluer, il faut une certaine compétence. Bien sûr, nous, élus, on ne nous a pas élus sur la base de nos compétences et sur nos connaissances scientifiques, etc. On nous a choisis pour nos positions politiques à travers les partis politiques que nous représentons, etc. Donc le citoyen lui-même, le parlementaire aussi, la majorité des parlementaires n'ont pas les moyens d'évaluer, n'ont pas la compétence nécessaire pour évaluer, d'où l'importance que vous avez dit, Madame la Présidente. Cet effort, il faut qu'il y ait un effort au sein de nos parlements d'augmentation de capacité au niveau des formations, je dis bien formation de nos parlementaires, mais aussi le problème se pose au niveau de la société civile. Comment le citoyen, bien sûr, à travers ces associations, bien sûr, c'est possible, mais le citoyen lui-même, comment il va pouvoir évaluer lui-même les politiques publiques dont il ne connaît pratiquement rien. Le Parlement, il peut faire mieux, mais ça ne dépend pas uniquement de lui. Il faut aussi que le gouvernement poursuive et achève sa transformation, sa métamorphose, et il faut qu'il reconnaisse le rôle des parlements au niveau de l'évaluation. Et ça, c'est un problème, parce que toujours, il perçoit comme si c'était des accusations. L'évaluation, c'est une mise en accusation du gouvernement. C'est une mise en accusation d'incompétence du gouvernement, de l'exécutif. Et ça, c'est un problème de ressenti. Il faut donc, l'évaluation va permettre justement de jeter les ponts vers l'exécutif et de mettre en place une culture, justement l'acculturation, une culture de dialogue. Il faut s'adapter à cela. Et il faut justement, moi je me plais à dire, il y a une formule célèbre, l'évaluation permet de piloter les politiques publiques et ne permet pas de pilonner les politiques publiques. Donc c'est très important, ce mindset, cet état d'esprit de l'exécutif par rapport justement au Parlement et par rapport justement à l'évaluation. Alors donc, et puis au niveau même des parlements, il faudrait, à mon avis, inscrire dans les règlements intérieurs, accroître les compétences des commissions permanentes. C'est-à-dire que les commissions permanentes doivent elles-mêmes procéder aux évaluations, parce que, je peux vous donner 2 exemples. Le Sénat français a choisi justement que les instances d'évaluation au niveau du Parlement soient justement ces commissions permanentes, mais l'Assemblée nationale française a choisi autre chose. Elle a choisi de mettre en place un comité ad hoc qui s'appelle le CEC, le comité d'évaluation et de contrôle des politiques publiques. Pour moi, un comité ne peut pas faire le... Il faut aussi une certaine indépendance au niveau des évaluations. Il faut des moyens au sein des évaluations que n'a pas la société civile. Prenons l'exemple, par exemple, de l'Allemagne. L'Allemagne, pour une étude en 2004 qui s'appelle la loi Hartz, a mobilisé... De toute façon, il y a une obligation juridique, une obligation législative pour toutes les lois dépassant le 1 million d'euros, qu'il y ait justement une évaluation en amont, ex ante. Et justement, cette loi Hartz a mobilisé 10 millions d'euros, a mobilisé 20 centres de recherche, parce qu'en Allemagne, l'évaluation est faite par les centres de recherche et par les laboratoires scientifiques. Ce n'est bien sûr sous l'autorité politique du Parlement, mais c'est des entités indépendantes qui procèdent à l'évaluation. Et ça a nécessité justement 20 centres de recherche, cette loi. Bien sûr, ça a un impact important sur le marché de l'emploi et sur le marché du travail. Et ça a mobilisé à peu près 100 consultants et 100 experts. Donc aujourd'hui aussi, le problème, vu justement qu'on a un problème de data, on a un problème d'information, l'information qui est délivrée au Parlement, même à la société civile, par le gouvernement, c'est une information qui est incomplète, qui est malheureusement très lacunaire. Et justement, il faut que les parlements eux-mêmes bâtissent justement des data, bâtissent des bases de données, etc. Mais pour cela, il faut des moyens. Donc il y a ce problème de moyens. Il faut que l'APNODE, il faut que nous-mêmes, à travers l'APNODE, etc., qu'on puisse faire des pressions sur nos parlements afin que nos parlements inscrivent des lignes de crédit sur des marchés publics au niveau des études, etc. et mettre en place justement cette culture de l'évaluation indépendante. Donc c'est une loi qui a eu lieu en 2004 et qui a justement ça. Mais je peux citer aussi d'autres lois. Dernièrement, en France, le Sénat français a mobilisé plus de 2 millions d'euros au niveau de la Commission de développement durable sur l'évaluation de l'empreinte carbone au niveau du numérique, c'est-à-dire tous les big data, blockchain, etc. Et ça, il n'y avait que des statistiques internationales, il n'y avait pas de statistiques françaises en la matière. Donc pour évaluer justement cette empreinte carbone, il y a eu justement un budget conséquent au sein du Parlement français. Bon, maintenant, nos parlements, c'est vrai que nos moyens sont indigents. Et en plus, on quémande, je dis bien on quémande entre guillemets, on quémande nos budgets à l'exécutif, qu'on est censé évaluer. Qu'on est censé en évaluer les politiques. Donc nous ne sommes pas à un paradoxe près, malheureusement. Et l'information qu'on a, c'est l'information de l'exécutif aussi, qu'on est censé aussi évaluer. Donc c'est des problématiques auxquelles il faudrait s'y attaquer. Merci, madame.
Thank you, Honorable Hifti. A wealth of inputs there. That, as you said earlier, we could have an entire seminar on some of the matters that you're raising. Any one of the other panelists want to share thoughts on the role of non-state actors? Who would like to? Honorable Sivanda?
Madam Chair, I look at the assistance we may get in terms of evaluation through various organs within the society. First, we need to make sure that information from top to bottom is properly disseminated to various organizations. Let's look at NGOs, look at villagers, look at traditional leaders, look at influencers in the society. How best can they assist us in terms of evaluating and monitoring development in the area? We need to do what is called capacity building, so that they accept that we need to evaluate and monitor what we do. And in their respective areas, they've got also various groupings, like, for example, VDCOs, Village Development Committees. We've got WADCOs, Ward Development Committees. We've got SDCs, Schools Development Committees. Also in traditional leadership, there are such gatherings, including the churches. But how best can we disseminate information about monitoring the evaluation? And as we say, evidence-based without hearsay, so that we gather the truth about our development in the area. We need to shift. If our MPs are fully capacitated in terms of educating them how evaluation is done, in terms of accepting that it is part of their duty to evaluate and monitor what is happening as an oversight role as MPs, we need to take it back to our councillors, take it back, as I said, to the village setup, and up we go the ladder up to the executive. The moment we do that, we'll get what is called acceptance within the community, acceptance within the the constituency, acceptance within the country, and therefore we can achieve evaluation and monitoring. But once it's focused on the top, then it means that it is going to be difficult to achieve. But one thing which we must understand is that from our roots, from our rural areas, from our rural setup, from down the stream, the village or the ward, these people do monitoring, including at their homes. They do evaluation. A mother evaluates that my meal is going to last for 2 days. But how best can we capacitate this mother to do it further towards the development of the area without focusing on where he stays or she stays? You understand? So we need to really do capacity building as we move forward to make sure that these organizations, these groupings, assist us as MPs in terms of evaluating by bringing evidence-based evaluation as per the dictates of evaluation and the monitoring. Thank you for now.
Thank you very much, Honorable
We can
Sibanda.
also-
Yes, please, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, the VOPs and the other CSOs can help us also if we create certain linkages in terms of the area of advocacy and lobbying, especially if we give them some of the challenges which we are facing, and then we build strategic partnerships and alliances with them to be able to create demand out there, because they have got the space to advocate and lobby, so they can actually create a demand that, you know, if Parliament can have these systems, Parliament should be able to look at this, Parliament should be able to monitor this, you know, Parliament should be able to advocate for this, that kind of action which they do, it could help awaken and open up various offices. Yeah, they can also work with us in the area of service delivery in terms of ensuring that the actual M&E services are delivered, and talk about constituency office and adopting certain constituency officers and working with them to be able to deliver a plan. You know, for example, we have been talking about a constituency 2 that can be used for evaluating a whole constituency, you know, baseline and evaluating a constituency, and that's what we can do with them. Shaping the development agenda. I think it is important for civil society to be able to shape the development agenda and not let the media houses come up with their own agenda. If they are able to bring out issues that require, for example, legislation that require oversight by Parliament, and highlight and project those strongly out there, it should become easier for them to be able to shape the development agenda and also change the trajectory of our news in the country to development issues as opposed to political issues. And of course, there is a need for this kind of independent voice that needs to come out. And that independent voice is very important, which is coming from civil society, is coming from other VOPs that are not in the mainstream. So that independent voice is very, very important because it is sometimes unique, and it can be listened to a bit more than coming from inside. So I would recommend most of the voluntary and civil society organizations to also work with various parliamentary committees. They could work with committees and come up with a system to be able to do the M&E of a particular committee. For example, agriculture committee or a health committee. You want to be able to evaluate how the Minister of Health is performing. Civil society can work with the health committee specifically, capacity building the members, agree on the tools to be used, and basically implement a program. The program must not only be limited to what the parliamentary committee cracks develop, because the committees only work according to that program which were given from the committee cracks for 10 days to look at this and this. But if there is that synergy between civil society and a particular committee, then a much more comprehensive, complex, and longer program can be developed that is going to go from baseline to monitoring up to evaluation. Even over a 5-year period, you could have midterm evaluation in the 3rd year to see how the health sector, for example, is performing, and come up with issues that complement the main reports that are, for example, currently being used. For example, in Zambia, mostly it's the Public Accounts Committee reports which are being used to check things. But then we needed to get more insight, to go deeper and also look at various angles, because the public accounts is looking more from the money side of things only. How is the money being utilized and But there are various angles that need to be checked to ensure that we have analyzed, for example, we have the other day we had the fishbone analysis, the 5 whys. Why is this, why this, why this? So we need to go, we need to have something like that. So if a particular civil society works with a committee over an agreed 5-year period, come up with a very good tool that is going to give periodic reports and the like, that could change the sector forever and have a huge impact in terms of bringing about development change and building that culture and ownership of monitoring and evaluation, both in Parliament and at national level. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Musanje and Honorable Sibanda. I think you touched on a very critical point, and I think something which is underutilized or underexamined is the absolute expanse of capacity that exists outside of the state, which is not being tapped into. And I think it's the formal organizations, the formal voluntary organizations for professional evaluation, it's even the academic institutions, it's the development partners. I think that there is a need and there is room for a closer relationship, because where there are capacity constraints in the state, these can be filled by the non-state actors if there is a closer relationship and a harmonious relationship towards the same objectives. And I think that that is definitely something that we could probably spend a lot of time talking about. But I want to shift us, in the interest of time. I see time is running away from us. This is such an interesting discussion. The third question is, and Honorable Gisela, I'd like to rope you in on this because you touched on it. You started talking about the continuation of evaluation, and that is linked to this element of utilization. So the question is about, in the ongoing effort to advance transformative development that benefits all within society, what measures need to be institutionalized to make national parliaments more responsive to utilizing evaluations? So if we assume that evaluations are happening and they are wonderful, it's this element of the use. What are your thoughts on that?
I'd say with the starting point of being a bit more nationalistic, and that minority and majority, we're all in this together. And the results will be beneficial to both the parties. Today in Ghana's parliament, we are exactly split in the middle. 137 the majority, 137 the minority, with one independent. And so the days of minority will have its say, but the majority will have its way, and not as those days for now are on hold. Let me put it that way. So the need for the transformative development that these evaluations will bring. Again, if we have a nationalistic viewpoint, that we are all on the same page, and we're all in this together, and if the boat sinks, it sinks with all of us. That, I think, is the first step, the mindset of wanting to make a positive change. And I would say we could look at maybe new standing orders Ghana's standing orders, the Parliament standing orders have been revised, not published yet. But perhaps there could be some standing orders that would be tweaked a little to factor in evaluation. There could be a national evaluation bill that would hold us accountable. There could also be the simple formalization of evaluation in Parliament. We've talked about that before. But I think that experience we can share and see how that can be formalized, because we have different nuances. It could also be that perhaps as the appropriation bill is passed, there should be some further linkages that it is not only passing the financials, looking at the financials, but there could be evaluation notices or reports attached to such a bill and dealt with at the committees. If you don't, you have to add this in addition to simply, for example, presenting the budget, the major budget review. How have you fared? And it's not just the figures, the nominal figures. It's about the actions that have been taken on the various policies and programs that the government is presenting. Our government has had quite a few flagship programs. Free senior high school, one district, one factory, one village, one dam. How have they fared, and at what point of visibility and effectiveness, for example, are they? I think we could also look at previous years' policy outcomes. Sometimes we are informed by history. And if we get our historical antecedents right and learned lessons from where we went wrong with previous evaluation systems or even the whole ecosystem, we could polish and make better and have these continuous improvements on the system that we also desire. Because I think that we have indicated that in both ways, we really need to be on the same page. And I think lastly, I'll talk about beyond the evaluations, the reports, the discussion should be in the public space. And that is where the media need to be as educated on evaluation as we are. And so we'll all come back to the issue of capacity building, not only ourselves, but the media, who would be the vehicle to carry it. And even talking about the media will not only be in formal languages, English and French and Arabic, Portuguese, the native languages that will make the people who represent understand what issues we are discussing, how effective they've been, and what, moving forward, what are likely to be the positives that they will take away just to make their lives better. Because eventually in government, that's what we're supposed to do, make our citizens' lives better.
Thank you. And you touched on so many important things, and one of the critical things we often talk about in institutionalization is putting it into law, making it you have to comply, you have to use the findings. And I think those are some of the things maybe the audience, when we get to the question and answer, if there are any experiences you can start thinking about that you have where, institutionalizing a system in making a law or a bill or something that compels government to use the youth evaluation. What are your experiences around that? But I'm wondering, the other panelists, is there anybody who would like to talk about this particular one, about the use of evaluation? How do we actually institutionalize that better in parliaments? Are there any thoughts from the other panelists? Honorable Hefti, thanks.
Présidente, je ne vois pas, je le redis, comment le Parlement pourrait justement procéder à une évaluation scientifique, à une évaluation pertinente sans des études d'impact. Et je me remets à l'expérience française. En 2008, il y a eu une réforme de la Constitution, à l'article 24 de la Constitution française, qui a obligé, je dis bien qui a fait l'obligation pour l'initiative législative du gouvernement à justement accompagner tous les projets de loi à mettre dans le circuit d'approbation parlementaire par une étude d'opportunité. C'est obligatoire depuis 2008. C'est-à-dire qu'on présente un projet de loi, mais avec une étude d'opportunité concernant l'évaluation justement de l'impact au niveau économique, au niveau de l'emploi, au niveau social, au niveau financier bien sûr, étudier les coûts et les résultats par rapport aux coûts, etc. Et les impacts environnementaux aussi. Donc c'est très important que nous travaillions ensemble à mettre en place justement cette culture et l'obligation est faite au gouvernement d'apporter justement des études pertinentes. C'est-à-dire que le Parlement français, à travers ces deux assemblées, il peut refuser un projet de loi s'il estime une estimation, s'il estime que, donc c'est une évaluation, une pré-évaluation, s'il estime que cette étude d'impact n'est pas au niveau requis, scientifiquement parlant. Donc là, moi je pense que mettre en place justement cette mesure est de nature à apporter une certaine quiétude au niveau des parlements et justement aligner quelque part le travail ex ante, le travail en amont du gouvernement avec le travail en aval des parlementaires. Donc c'est une mesure, moi je pense qu'il faudrait qu'on travaille ensemble au niveau de l'APNODE avant peut-être de la proposer à nos gouvernements, à l'exécutif en fin de compte, hein, afin qu'ils puissent la mettre dans le circuit. Il faut dire aussi une chose, c'est que j'ai parlé tout à l'heure de la crise de la démocratie représentative, c'est que quand je regarde moi les réseaux sociaux, hein, je ne suis pas fier de moi. Nous n'avons pas bonne presse, nous les parlementaires, on est pointés du doigt. Donc il y a un problème fondamental au niveau, parce que peut-être justement cette évaluation, elle va permettre justement de créer ce lien il y a une rupture, qui seront juste après l'élection. De Tocqueville disait, la démocratie en Amérique, disait que le moment de l'élection, déjà, il y a de l'aristocratie dans la démocratie. C'est-à-dire que le peuple, nos électeurs, dès le momentum de l'élection, ils se détournent d'ailleurs. Tout de suite, ils se détournent de l'élu qu'ils ont choisi. Donc, il y a un réel problème. Il y a cette relation qui doit durer dans le temps entre l'électeur et l'élu. Et moi, je pense que l'évaluation est un moyen efficace, justement, de maintenir cet alignement, cette articulation, cette harmonie, cette cohérence entre l'élu avec son mandat, parce qu'il y a un problème de mandat. Le mandat donné à l'élu, l'électeur, il voudrait donner un mandat impératif, c'est-à-dire qu'il pourrait justement retirer dès qu'il voit que le parlementaire n'est pas dans le bon chemin. Mais le mandat au niveau de la démocratie représentative est un mandat qui lui donne donc toute l'attitude à agir. Donc comment, pendant ces 5 ans, pendant cette mandature, pendant 6 ans, comment justement maintenir ce lien et maintenir cet état d'esprit. C'est une question d'éthique aussi. Donc si on ne nous donne pas les moyens d'évaluer les politiques publiques, toujours il y aura ce hiatus entre l'électeur, c'est-à-dire entre le peuple et ses représentants, et c'est paradoxal. J'ai parlé tout à l'heure des budgets, mes amis sont là. Les budgets, j'ai dit qu'on quémandait. On quémandait au niveau de la commission des finances quand le gouvernement était là, ministère des Finances, on quémandait le budget de la Chambre. Et on discutait avec nous au centime près, etc., etc. Mais on peut pas dire au gouvernement, donnez-nous l'argent pour vous évaluer, alors que le gouvernement pense qu'évaluer, c'est justement une mise en accusation de l'exécutif. Il y a des paradoxes. C'est-à-dire que, moi je veux parler là, derrière, qu'est-ce qu'il y a là? C'est l'indépendance de l'institution législative dont je veux parler. L'indépendance. Et si nous ne faisons rien pour mettre cette culture de l'indépendance en avant, nous resterons toujours serviles, je dis bien serviles, dans l'acquiescement, dans l'obséquiosité par rapport à l'exécutif, et toujours il y aura ce déséquilibre qui fait mal au cœur. Moi, ça me fait mal au cœur en tant que parlementaire d'être justement dans cette servilité pendant 5 ans par rapport à l'exécutif, parce qu'on manque de moyens, parce qu'on manque d'informations, on manque de data, on manque de tout. Bon, bien sûr, au niveau de la Constitution, il y a une panoplie de mesures, il y a des commissions d'enquête, des missions d'information, des questions orales, des questions écrites au chef du gouvernement, etc., etc. Mais tout cela, je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, avec la majorité monolithique, avec le fait majoritaire, il est réduit à 0. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Honourable Hefti. So these are all the challenges facing parliaments, for sure, and I wish we had more time to go into it in greater depth. But we have about 8 minutes left, and with your permission, honourable panelists and honourable members and guests, if I may open up the floor, maybe just for 2 or 3 comments or quick questions. The last 2 questions we won't be able to cover, but they were basically about capacity, which is what we've discussed quite in depth already. And then the last one is about how APNODE can actually assist with some of these challenges. So those are the 2 areas. But if I may ask, if I could take maybe 2 or 3 hands just as we moving towards wrap up, and maybe the panelists can engage you on questions. We have 1 over here, 1 over there at the back, and that's 3, 4. If I can just take those 4. Please remember your numbers. Thank you. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so thank you very much for the opportunity, and I want to commend the discussants for a great job done. My question is, I want to find out from them how we can ensure that political ideology or political patronage does not undermine the quality of evaluation within the context of seeking inputs from CSOs and other relevant stakeholders. I'm asking this question because we have established the essence of evidence and evaluation. But in seeking to get the evidence in order to evaluate, if we are not careful, our interest might lead to us getting input from stakeholders that will suit our interests and not the interests of the larger society. So I want them to tell us how we can eliminate biases from the evaluation process.
Great question. Thank you very much. Number 2, and if I may please ask kindly to just keep it brief. The second person, thank you, from Côte d'Ivoire.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je suis le sénateur Cissé Mamadou de la Côte d'Ivoire. Madame la Présidente, pour être bref, je pense que la Côte d'Ivoire et le Maroc s'inscrivent dans les mêmes principes, notamment au niveau de la Constitution de 2016. Mais tout à l'heure, lors de l'intervention du représentant du Zimbabwe, je crus comprendre qu'il y a un ministère en charge du suivi et évaluation. Est-ce que quelle peut être l'efficacité d'un ministère qui évalue le gouvernement, si j'ai bien compris? Je pense qu'il faut revoir cette implication et pour plus d'efficacité au niveau de l'Afrique de l'Ouest. Nous avons, selon les recommandations de l'UEMOA, nous avons pratiquement tous les pays aujourd'hui ont mis en place un budget programme. Ce budget programme avec des indicateurs de performance nous permettent d'avoir une évaluation plus nette sur ce qui a été fait, puisque nous avons des indicateurs et nous avons des budgets qui sont triannuel, c'est-à-dire pour les 3 ans. Je pense qu'il faut de plus en plus que les parlements puissent aller vers ces budgets programmes-là qui peuvent nous permettre d'avoir une évaluation plus nette. Merci.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Number 3 and then number 4.
Merci bien, Madame la Présidente. Chez moi, ce n'est pas une question, c'est par rapport à ce que a dit l'honorable Abdellah. Et nous, au niveau du Burkina Faso, nous n'avons pas cette dépendance vis-à-vis du gouvernement en ce qui concerne le budget de l'Assemblée nationale. La Constitution est claire, l'Assemblée nationale est indépendante dans l'élaboration et la gestion de son budget. Nous élaborons notre budget et on informe le gouvernement qui annexe au projet de loi de finances. Donc le gouvernement ne peut pas enlever 1 franc, ne peut pas ajouter 1 franc. Nous, c'est nous qui faisons notre expression et on informe le gouvernement, on écrit officiellement pour informer le gouvernement. Donc c'est une expérience qui peut être partagée aux autres parlements. Voilà. Merci, c'est ce que je voulais dire.
Thank you. There was an honourable member just behind you who I missed. Honourable member with your hand up, please go ahead.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je suis l'honorable Gambo Bernadette de la République centrafricaine. En ce qui concerne l'évaluation chez nous, depuis l'année passée, on a voté un budget programme. Donc, on a mis en place, le gouvernement a mis en place un système où les membres du gouvernement qui sont des ministres résidents dans les régions, avec les députés des régions, travaillent en synergie pour voir l'état des lieux, les actions à mener et ensuite évaluer pour pouvoir essayer de faire développer le pays. Voilà le système qui est instauré chez nous en République centrafricaine. Je tiens à partager ça. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, honourable member. I've got one more honourable member in the front, and then we'll have to take the very last comment after that.
Oui. Merci, Madame la Présidente, de m'avoir accordé la parole. Je voudrais tout d'abord remercier les panélistes pour la clarté de leurs propos. Je voudrais juste revenir sur la communication, je ne vais pas être longue, et le leadership des parlementaires. Je pense que nous avons besoin, on en a parlé, mais je voudrais insister de mieux communiquer envers les différentes cibles, c'est-à-dire l'exécutif, la société civile, et parce que nous devons faire comprendre que l'évaluation est un outil de progrès. Et pour moi, c'est très important. Ça a été dit, ce n'est pas le contrôle. L'évaluation, permet un développement harmonieux et nous permet justement de voir ce qu'on a fait, ce qui va, ce qui ne va pas. Et je voudrais aussi parler du leadership des députés qui doit être fort, qui doit avoir une certaine visibilité. Cela m'amène à parler d'APNODE. Je pense que APNODE a un grand rôle à jouer sur l'instauration de l'évaluation comme outil de travail parlementaire. Et il a été dit depuis hier, nous attendons d'APNODE de nous aider. La meilleure façon d'aider nos pays à l'instauration de l'évaluation comme outil de travail parlementaire, c'est l'adhésion de nos parlements à APNODE et surtout la création des sections locales, ce qui permet que nous ayons une certaine visibilité. Et ceci m'amène aussi à interpeller nos partenaires qui doivent nous aider au renforcement des capacités des parlementaires, parce que nous ne sommes pas des évaluateurs, nous avons besoin d'avoir nos capacités renforcées pour que nous puissions ne serait-ce qu'analyser les données qui nous sont données et j'insiste sur la visibilité des parlementaires au niveau local. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honourable Member. The final comment, please make it very brief and then just 1 minute wrap up by the panel. Thank you.
Merci. Écoutez, mon intervention, je suis le président fondateur de l'Association marocaine de l'évaluation et depuis 14 ans, nous plaidons pour l'institutionnalisation de l'évaluation, de la fonction de l'évaluation au Maroc. Je suis très précis donc, et par conséquent, c'est-à-dire dans le sens que la fonction de l'évaluation, c'est d'abord la redevabilité, c'est l'apprentissage et la prise de décision. Donc pendant 14 ans, nous plaidons, à travers un certain nombre de mémorandums, 3 mémorandums que nous avons présentés, c'est-à-dire à l'occasion de la révision de la Constitution marocaine en 2011, à l'occasion de la promulgation de la loi organique sur les collectivités territoriales et à l'occasion aussi de grands débats au Maroc sur le nouveau modèle de développement. Et chaque fois, nous revenons, c'est-à-dire nous insistons pour que l'institutionnalisation de l'évaluation se fasse selon un certain nombre de normes et standards. Voilà. Et par la même occasion, je voudrais que je converge beaucoup avec notre honorable conseiller CFD sur la question de l'évaluation des lois. Nous l'avons d'ailleurs proposé dans le cadre du mémorandum adressé à la commission chargée de la révision du modèle de développement économique marocain. En plus bien sûr de l'institutionnalisation du plaidoyer sur l'institutionnalisation de la fonction de l'évaluation, nous participons activement au renforcement de capacités au Maroc. D'ailleurs, des centaines de personnes ont été formées par l'Association marocaine de l'évaluation à l'évaluation des politiques publiques, au suivi évaluation, aux indicateurs et ainsi de suite. Et nous avons aussi un événement phare depuis 2010, c'est la Semaine marocaine de l'évaluation. Et nous avons jusqu'ici organisé 4 éditions. D'ailleurs, la 2e édition de 2012 a porté sur l'institutionnalisation de l'évaluation dans les pays en transition démocratique, notamment les pays africains. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. So we've run out of time and I'm going to have to, unfortunately, I'm not able to take your final hand. I think you had given it over to your president, but maybe during tea time you can make a comment. But I have to, there are 2 direct questions for the panelists, and if I may ask you to just very, very briefly, there was one specific question on CSOs and one specific question for Honorable Sibanda, and we can then wrap it up then. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. With Zimbabwe, you talked about a minister being appointed to be the minister of, in the President's office, to be a minister of monitoring and evaluation and implementing government projects. To us, it's a transformation towards the right direction. It actually assists us in terms of being transparent to the electorate, our people, being transparent to the funds we use as a country on various government development projects. So as a result, for us at APNODE, we are so happy that at least the government is seeing what we are trying to achieve. And as a country, we know that every little cent is put into good use through monitoring and evaluation.
Thank you, Honorable Sibanda. And then just the last question on political patronage and CSOs. Who would like to, in 1 minute, perhaps try to give an answer there?
Yeah, I think one needs to ensure that they are using objective tools that have been verified that they are reliable, to ensure that they are not going to be questioned once applied. So I think the issues of internal and external validity come in there in terms of the processes and the tools that are going to be used, including the personnel, to ensure that none of them is actually aligned or linked to any political ideology, so that you can remove all the biases that I expect that may influence the analysis. Because definitely, if somebody is coming with a biased political ideology, their analysis will be weakened by that bias. So you have to eliminate all those biases and come up with very credible people, credible process, credible tools, and agreed by everybody across the board that this is what can give us a good report that we can all agree and utilize once we get the results.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, honorable panelists. Of course, we could have spoken about these topics for hours. Please give a hand of applause to our honorable panelists and for yourselves for being a wonderful audience. Please enjoy your coffee break. We'll come back in at 11:30. Thank you.